and this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
How healthy are your arteries? Deteriorating circulation has a number of early warning signs. High cholesterol, high blood pressure, fingers and or toes often go cold. Arms and or legs often go to sleep. Sharp diagonal crease in the earlobe. Short walks cause cramping or pains in legs. Memory is not as good as it used to be. Ankles swell late in the day. Chest pain after physical exercise or emotional stress. If you experience even one of these symptoms, your circulatory system is crying out for attention. Extendivite is a natural solution to help improve your overall health. Extendivite is not your average heart tonic. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or find us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Do you feel as if you don't belong? Do you know you were meant for something more? Well, you were. Knowledge of who you are and where you really are from is within your reach. Join Janet Kara Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin as they search for the answers as they open up the stargate to the cosmos.
Aloha, Hi. Thank you. Aloha and welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos. And I'm your host, Janet Kara Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alec Lessin, and our producer is Thomas Becker. And today we're going to speak with Glenn Bogue. He's a semi-regular here on the show, been on here a number of times, and Glenn is a lawyer, nutritional historian, and Olympian, and author of the Book of Isis series, and he's from Toronto, and he's got a bio up there on Aquarian Radio. I'm not going to focus on that today. You can go read it on aquarianradio.com, but we're going to focus on his fifth book in the Book of Isis series, and This one's called Are We Being Lied To? And let me read a little bit about it. 200,000 years ago, according to the creation tale of the Sumerians, a female scientist was summoned to the earth by beings who had traveled here in search of gold. Using in vitro fertilization and genetics, she took the ovum of a beast found in East Africa and fashioned the first human, the cells of whom are designed to be fed 6 cellular foods in a specific form in order to produce perfect health, a dynamic weight and energy, and a sexual rapture that borders on quantum experience. Today, the Genome Project has mapped our DNA and confirmed that indeed all the races of the earth can be traced back to one woman in East Africa. She was renowned as divine wisdom who, according to Proverbs 8:23, was there in the beginning. Her work was enshrined in the ancient Egyptian symbol of Isis, holding aloft Horus, the first of the genus Homo sapiens. As the creatrix of the DNA, she was honored as the woman of the tree, consort to Yahweh. This image of the woman became lost at the fashioning of the Roman Catholic Church, which supplanted her image with that of the Virgin Mary and her virgin son. Although the Knights Templar kept her secret, the Vatican, along with the Bank of England, usurped their power by establishing an international banking system. The woman then began to appear throughout the world to reestablish her ancient truth, as proven in Book 5, by the greatest miracle of all time. And Glenn Bogue is going to talk to us about this incredible new book. He's been traveling around the world and finally got it out after many years. Dr. Lessin, hi.
Aloha. Yeah, really. Yes, can you hear me, Janet?
Yes, we can.
Way cool. Yay.
What do you think
Glenn,
about this?
I'm really excited to hear all this. I hope that this presentation, I imagine it will deal with some of the most interesting things that have been in my consciousness for quite a while. And one of them is the fractal of the Messiah within, that is the good, loving person. And this character seems to appear a number of ways in the literature. Sometimes it's Enki, sometimes it's Jesus, and so forth. And I don't think it's an accident, and I think you're going to elucidate that. So I'm looking forward to that.
Welcome back, Glenn Bogue.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, I'm almost out of breath because I'm almost out of breath because for 23 years of my research time, the first 15 years was go and stop. But the audience should know, those especially who are what I would call newbies to these concepts, if you step out now into the maelstrom, so many things are happening so quickly that whatever path you get on, you'll be right in the front row. Am I being too cryptic?
No, yes, so please, our audience doesn't know what the hell you're talking about. So you could elaborate on that.
Book 5 is about, the premise is about banking and how it's not really banking. It's really, the world is now governed by financial institutions. And these are producing not dollars or wealth for the people to use. They're issuing what I would call debt instruments. A U.S. dollar or a Canadian dollar is a debt instrument. And so the more you participate in that process of shopping and creating more debt or credit card debt, you're really putting yourself into a further slave position.
I agree.
And
so how do we do that?
Well, this banking system, you have to go back to the period of 1200s when the Knights Templar designed and passed or forced on King John the Magna Carta. And the Magna Carta was a stepping stone of the People's Bank that you could travel around the world, and Janet could go, or a listener could go, and they would travel from Maui to New Zealand, and it would be taken care of by the people's wealth. Once you realize that the correct form of government for human beings is a republic and not a democracy, and right now in North America, it's constantly bombarded on the people, on the Americans in particular, that they're in a democracy. You have to stop and remind yourself that Benjamin Franklin established a republic where the resources of America, the mineral wealth of America, belongs to the people. And so the people can issue their own instruments, their own financial instruments, and they can then travel to New Zealand to do their work, in my example. But that's what was set up by the...
Glenn, in reading the Federalist Papers and other stuff and dialogues with Alexander Hamilton, said, we got to get in debt so we can play the game. And that seems to be where there was a huge shift.
That's exactly right. There was just an article I responded to that quoted Hamilton for his premise that a proper state government helps to restrict the power of the state for the people. But Hamilton was the author of the first central bank of North America. And that lasted for about 30 years until it was thrown out by the U.S. Congress, because Thomas Jefferson said the opposite. The minute you have a private central bank controlling the currency, let's call it currency. Once you're controlling the currency of how people move about with their credit card or their U.S. Dollar, once you restrict their ability to do that, the democracy or the republic or the freedom is finished. So you're quite right, Dr. Lessin, that you have Hamilton on one side, who was really a European agent, and you have the founding fathers, let's say Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, saying exactly the opposite.
The problem also is that George Washington was also a British agent. He worked for the Crown before the Revolution, and he was committed to that system and leaning toward Hamilton, who may well have been his son. Well,
in the whole. This is why this show is such a great show, and I want the audience to know. I want the audience to know that because A, I am a lawyer. B, I am a master's degree of history. Third, I do have several academic acknowledgments awards in the United States for my academic work, and so, as you begin to address the correct telling of the history, you've got to get people to shift over from what they've been taught. Like as if I thought today for the show, if you have A to Z as your ideas, you have 26 ideas. If you've only been taught 13 of those letters, you don't know what, let's say L to Z, or Z, you don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
And so you spend time learning from L to Z what they're talking about. And now we can have a discussion. So when you say that George Washington, the hero of 1776, was a British agent, now let's go back to my specialty, which is the indigenous history of North America. I am primarily an indigenous lawyer. And what we now find out is that when the British couldn't afford the Hessian German soldiers they hired anymore, they had to come to a peace table in Paris. And when they went there in 1783, they realized rather than hire these German buggers to go and fight, we can make a trade deal with the leaders in Washington. Well, then it was Philadelphia, of course, but we could make a deal with them to make them our business partners. And that's what really happened, Dr. Lessin. it happened that this is why Jefferson and Washington and Hamilton, they all kept their slaves, because the slaves, which were the indigenous people and the black people primarily, were property. And once those people of North America were property, then those American government figures can start making treaties without the blacks and indigenous being present. So the Peace Treaty of Paris of 1763, before the Revolutionary War, 1783, after the Revolutionary War, they made deals in Paris amongst the Portuguese, Spanish, and the British. They didn't invite the North Americans, except for the small group of people who were willing to play ball. So I believe what you're saying. It's a long discussion of George Washington. What the purpose of the deal was? We're playing ball with the groups, with the cabal. Let's call them the cabal in Europe of the crowns, the crown cabal.
Mm-hmm.
And so you begin to see in 1846 the Oregon Treaty. The Oregon Treaty, the British Crown and Philadelphia. I guess by then it was Washington. It was just starting to be Washington. Just took all of Western Canada, British Columbia, and just gave it to the British. They didn't talk to the people living in the land. And all that's changing now around the world. All that's changing. And the indigenous people are coming up all over the world. As if the earth, as if Mother Earth, we're going to talk about this tonight, as if Mother Earth now is empowering the native people to throw off the crowns of Europe and all the dirty deals that were done.
Beautiful. The U.S. Constitution is held in such reverence, but when I really look at it, what it does was it made the Virginia by this legerdemain of counting slaves as part of the delegates that a state gets, but not as voters or citizens in any way. And so it's from the get-go, the Constitution has a terrible, flawed institution of indebted slavery and actual slavery, and the regarding of people and their person as property, and it sucks.
Well, let's go backwards just a little bit.
We can go backwards and even forwards, because in a secret space program, which is what you're not part of these shows, but I do with other people, Dr. Lessin and I do with other people, the whole entire human race is property. And so we're not being included when they make negotiations with extraterrestrials. It's the same concept. But let's
That's
go
exactly
back.
Right.
Let's go back in time and get, where did this start? You said the Magna Carta was even junk. So we thought it was, the traditional things, that was a great document. And,
no, I'm saying that the Magna Carta forced the crown to accept the will of the people.
Oh, forced the crown. Okay.
Forced the crown.
What year was the Magna Carta?
1215.
1215. So we're going way back.
And just a minute. Georgia in 2015 celebrated. The state of Georgia celebrated this great event. I didn't see it much anywhere else in the U.S., but it's really revered for what it did, at least in Georgia. But so it was a major event that the king was, for the first time, brought under some kind of, and this is the kings all the way back to the Sumerian kingships, the lowering of the kingship way back in 4000 BC. This is the first time in 4,000 years that some group, the Knights Templar, whoever the hell these people are, came forward with enough nerve to threaten the crown of England. Mm-hmm. So right away he went to get the Pope for help through the back door. They sent a Paul Revere on the horseback, go get his help, and away he went, the courier, to get the Pope's help. And over the next 70 years, they kind of wriggled out of Magna Carta. But the price to pay was that the Vatican would get 50% of the revenues of England.
Wow.
And with that set up, then you have the basis of this. Once they killed the Knights Templar, they then now have this international banking system that first began to get its wheels with the Medici family in Italy. This middle class, not well educated group that was all about money and bribing different crowns. And from then, now the wars began between Italy and France and London. Who's going to control this international bank? What was lost to the Knights Templar was making this bank for the people. So I just found out when I wrote to you guys about the show. Go ahead, Sasha. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wonder, if I got it that some of the Templars escaped the massacre in France and went to Scotland and basically through the Masons and the very top of many of those secret societies have preserved that idea of having the people empowered rather than the bankers.
Well, then, but don't stop, because at the Law Society hearing I just had in Toronto, actually in Ottawa, the nation's capital, we had our hearing there. I told them that the Templars, whatever they had that they took off out of France with the secret, they took to Scotland. They then took it to Nova Scotia on the east coast of Canada. From there, it went to Mexico. Then it went to Peru. And then it went to the Philippines.
Wow.
Now with that framework, you begin to see the wars from 1500 until today trying to find either the secret or trying to find the actual gold bars that left from France. Because if gold bars were in Peru, those people were not melting the gold down and making bricks out of it. They were making ornamental religious figures, instruments. But to have it in gold bars to be put on boats to be shipped back to the Vatican, those gold bars, now they're thinking, came from France.
Ah.
Because when Cortez went into Mexico and Pizarro went into South America, they're now saying, that the historians, that Cortez had the map in his hand. He knew exactly where the gold bars were. Never mind Montezuma. Never mind roaming around the countryside. They took a road exactly to where the treasure map to where those gold bars were.
In Tenochtitlan?
Yeah, I don't know the exact destination where they were, but the same thing. That's where they were heading, and whatever they got along the way was no problem. But from the get-go, they were going to wipe out 100 million people.
Whoa.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit further, because I have a lot of questions. Which clan were they? Who was where? So we know from our research shows us that Enki went to the South America. So was he the faction that had the gold, and then the Spanish sent Cortez to get it off of Enki's clan, or am I getting this right?
Well, let's go backwards. In my books, I end up showing that Enki appeared under several names. When you change language, the person doesn't change. If I call Dr. Lessin an anthropologist, well, that's his name. And but if his name is Sasha or Greg or Peter or Frank, the anthropologist from UCLA who lives in Maui. So we know who it is, no matter what his name is. So Enki's name changes through history. And this person, Robert Stanley, who I've not met but I've communicated with, he named 5 of the 6 names that are in my book. And the names are not related by civilizations. I just pieced them together through my own research, and whatever his research is, he's now in China. Whatever his research is, he says he's met Enki. And Enki told him these are his names. You'd swear that Robert Stanley had read my book 4.
Or maybe he did. Well, what are the 6 names?
Let's go backwards. When Sasha mentions the gold source, King Solomon had Solomon's mines at 1000 BC. And those mines we now know are in South Africa. Michael Tellinger tells us that they're there. And they're also in Peru. Because Solomon's boats were found in South America with his hexagram seal on the prow of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So at 1000 BC, Solomon, whoever he is in downtown Jerusalem, is mining gold in Peru and in South Africa.
So Solomon is Enki then?
Yeah.
So my theory is that Solomon's Enki, and this is a very difficult explanation through time, but Enki went to Egypt, and we now know this, that Enki went into the Nile Valley and became, my theory is he became Jesse. Jesse was the serpentine godfather of King David. He's serpentine. Enki is partly amphibian. Jesse is partly amphibian. He has a son named David. And then according to the last chapter of the Bible, Jesse became David's son because Jesse married David's daughter and became the name Solomon. It's David's son-in-law. David's daughter was Rebecca Tamar. And she's married to Solomon. In the Bible, Solomon marries Pharaoh's daughter. So once we realize that King David is a pharaoh, am I going too fast here? We're talking about Jerusalem and downtown Cairo. So there's downtown Cairo, and 200 miles away or so is downtown Jerusalem. Well, they can't find any evidence of Solomon and David anywhere in Israel. The top guy's named Finkelstein, and he's had 50 years to find Solomon and David. He finally threw up his hands up and said, we can't find a darn thing. Whereas Ralph Ellis, the scholar in England, says that Solomon and David were pharaohs in Memphis or sometimes Cairo, and their names are Susenes the second, and Solomon's name is Sheshonk. And when Ralph Ellis puts up on his book called Solomon the Falcon of Sheba, he puts up the lineage of the Jewish kings and the Egyptian pharaohs, and the names are almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
But the Arab scholars are not allowed to speak to the Hebrew scholars.
That would make so much sense. That whole thing would explain why Joseph was elevated to overseer of Egypt, because he was recognized ultimately as being a descendant of Enki.
Now, I've never heard that before. Fantastic. So here he is, bringing the family in, and here's what I'm proposing is Enki became Jesse, the serpentine fish god, and then he becomes Solomon. And what does Solomon do? He brings this image of the woman of the tree. Her name is Asherah.
Oh.
And he brings her into Jerusalem from downtown Cairo. I call it downtown, so it's the main power center, either Thebes or Memphis or Cairo. But it's the main power center. He brings into the hinterland, he brings in this image of the woman of the tree, saying that this is the woman who fashioned the first Adam. That the God of the period, whose name is Yahweh or Enlil, you didn't do this. You couldn't do this. The person who did this was the woman of the tree, known in Egypt as Isis, but known way back in the day as Ninmah.
Right.
Now Ninmah and Enki have left from Sumer, forced out. They were forced out. They had to go into Cairo, make their nest there. They were kicked out of there. And where did they go? They took the woman of the tree. She appears next in Greece. And she appears there as Athena. And if you go to a book called The Serious Mystery by Robert Temple, and there's a photograph of Athena, and she has fish scales inside of a tree. She's the woman of the tree.
Wow, that's fascinating, Glenn. And also, there's some things about just what the tree was. My friends from the world of entheogens say it was a dimethyltryptamine-bearing tree that allowed people to transcend their 3D consciousness and feel unity consciousness.
Wow. The image that I have is that it's also it's multiple things. So it can be that. It can also be the DNA, the tree of life.
Yeah.
So she fashioned the tree of life, and her partner is Jesus. Jesus Christos is a Greek royal title. That's not his name. You're not Anthony Prologist. You're Sasha. That's not his name.
Right.
Anthropologist is a title. His title is Jesus Christos. And once he puts the image of the tree in Greece, our founding culture, Western civilization, he leaves from there when he has it firmly established. He goes back into the River Jordan and comes up the River Jordan, as Enki did. He appeared all over the world on the coastline because he's the Lord of the waters. And he comes up the River Jordan with his Asherah, whose name now becomes the royal title, Mary the Magdalene. They get married at the wedding at Canaan. And the great one, that's the great one. It's originally Ninmah, who went to become Isis in downtown Cairo, kicked out of there. She went to Greece to establish her cult there. It's called a culture there in Greece, which dominated the Mediterranean. And when she's strong enough, she goes back into Jerusalem and appears as Mary the Magdalene. And that's where they deliver a female enzyme. You guys call it Amrita. This book I wrote to you about, this book by Dr. Christine Page, calls it the female enzyme. But
yes.
She's there teaching a very ancient sacred sexual rite, that the female can produce this substance. And that's the core of our show today, whether or not it's the human female produces the Stargate substance, or is it AI technology, which is doing it now. I just came from a meeting at dinner tonight here where I live. It's very advanced people, researchers that are talking about the AI. It's called a synthetic Stargate. And so humans are going to have a choice to go through the synthetic AI Stargate or go through the human, like two tunnels. And they both take you to different dimensions.
Well, I really think this is exciting because in order to produce Amrita, or the female ejaculate as we call it, you need to practice Tantra and have such a coherence of lovers into a one that allows them to transcend their separateness with each other and with anything and everything. And so it seems like utterly critical. It means that women will no longer be degraded in our world once we recognize this, because we don't make it without them as partners.
But watch what's happening, Sasha, with the whole education system, at least in Canada, is happening that the females are now becoming gender neutral.
Wow.
So what's going on? Okay, so the females are becoming gender neutral. But see, the genders, there's more than two genders. So this is the whole problem, because there's like 59 genders or something like that. I read an article about it. I'm not a major researcher on this, but we think in terms of male and female, but it's a climb. And so people get confused in their identification because they're trying to put us in one box or the other. But women are sometimes more masculine than they are feminine, and vice versa. And so if we open this up and understand that this gender identification is a climb, but we still have people who can ejaculate that are
Janet, you're far from your microphone.
Open their uteruses.
We can't hear you, Janet.
The soul to enter from the inner dimensions. So they are the Stargate. They are the gateway between this dimension. Oh, okay. Hold on. I'll be. Okay, keep talking.
Well, I'm not against being transgender or gender neutral. My point is that and this is where our research has to speak to each other. But if you're a female and you have a yoni, if you're a being with two legs and you have a yoni, then out of that yoni can come this what we call amrita, or this ormus molecule that we'll call an enzyme. This enzyme substance can come out of that yoni. It can't come out of the male penis. Now, the male who has a strong feminine affinity, to me, would have a heightened ability to produce this in the female partner. Now, this is not a sexual partner, maybe. This is some kind of it's called a Stargate partner. And that's where I draw the line. But once the females get drawn into an AI, an artificial intelligence setup, where they get confused by the cell phone in their hand and the iPad mini on their lap and the computer in front of them, and they're not confused by the whole AI thing and the video world, you're heading into Alice in Wonderland, where you're a part AI and you're a part human.
It's already happened.
It's already happened. It's already happened.
That's what I'm saying. Go ahead.
So I think it's perhaps a spurious dichotomy. I think that it's just like the show Battlestar Galactica, where they finally realized that they were AI. That this being that was fashioned by the Anunnaki is all the above. It has AI within it. It's artificial, and what is artificial, what is real? That's what we have to get to, because it's all divine. It's all of source. I don't want to use the term God. It's all of source. There's nothing that exists that isn't from source. So it's all divine. So, and that's why you have the stories of the puppet that once Pinocchio, and all these beings that desire to be human. But we have to look at what does it really mean to be human, to be, I don't know. I'm just looking at it. I think people want to get all fearful about it, but I think it's already a done deal. But we do have a tendency to just fall into computers, and I think we're eventually going to get bored with that, though, because we get bored with everything. We're bored with this reality, so we're disappearing into another reality. But once we open the cosmos and we become a spacefaring race, we're going to be entertained for quite a while.
But let's watch what Robert Stanley said in the video link that I sent you. Robert Stanley, I don't know the fellow at all. I have a few things from him by email. But what he said was that Enki, coming from Orion, with his family, came here to produce a race of people with the specific goal of one day joining them with AI. So the AI soldier, going back to Orion for this war that's going on up there, the AI soldier would have the human intuition and be a superior soldier than they've ever seen before. And the rest of the population of the Earth would be depopulated.
Super soldiers. It makes so much sense. Yes.
Super soldiers.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
They're already making super soldiers. They're looking for the metagene, which is the ability to contain and hold heaven on earth. It's the entire continuum. it's magic. We have science and religion, we have magic. And so these beings are able to manifest. This metagene allows you to manifest from nothing, like waving the wand, bring it in 3D physicality. And so that's why they were really attracted to human beings, because somewhere in this experiment, which goes back to the Anunnaki and even before, we're going back millions and billions of years, they accidentally created the metagene, and that's why they're here harvesting humans for their hybridization programs. They're hoping to recreate it in their lab, so to speak, so that they can, master control things. But this is just a game. This whole human game is just a matrix of virtual reality. And someday we're going to wake up and go, oh, yeah, that was interesting. But,
Except that I think that when the Eve was created, it was time. Whatever the hell this thing is, it's the most fantastic creation in the known universe. And the Eve has a completely different destiny. And they weren't counting on that.
Right.
Which to me would be a souls coming in. You just can't have an inanimate hunk of clay start to walk around the planet. A soul has to come in there to give it animus, to give it animation. They didn't count on where these souls came from. That's my theory. And what that female was capable of when she gives birth, because the indigenous people, I'm just learning this the last 3 years, so the audience knows I'm a Canadian lawyer, I'm an Olympian here, I did a lot of great things. I've only been to discover my own native root the last 3 years. So like the audience, I'm just go out and knock on the door of the local reserve and get in there and start talking to them and start learning. So they're teaching me that the mother-daughter is the lesson line. They don't teach the men these things because the men are a little wacky. They'll make the bomb. If you teach them quantum physics, she told me, she was taught by her grandmother in 1950 quantum physics. So how can that happen? Well, we know that for hundreds of years, quantum physics. We didn't tell the males because they'll make the bomb. Mm-hmm. That's what men do with things. They make wagons and motorcycles, and they love that stuff. But the female keeps that information to themselves. The power of the female is held within the indigenous clan mothers. Mm-hmm. And that's why they were murdered all over North America.
And that's why they created the male species to be the warriors, because a lot of the higher races, the species, cannot war. So they can't defend themselves against those violent species that they're not everywhere, but humanoids encounter these violent races that just come in and destroy everything and take the resources. They want the minerals. They have no regard for any kind of life whatsoever. And so that's what they did. They hybridized the human species, especially the males, so that they could kill. Because a lot of the species can't kill. They just don't have it within them. Because they're in forms that are not solid as human beings. Humans have skin encapsulated self-sense. So they can be the apparent other. They can have self and apparent other. They can have self and not self, right? But most of the species in existence in the continuum are more permeable. And so when they come together, like in Tantra, humans can come together in Tantra, and they can merge one into the other. They can do the Vulcan mind meld. They can do the mind, body, soul emergence and transcendence. But not all humans can do that. And that's the women that have the Stargate that can open portals. So they not only can conceive and have children, which is partially opening the portal, but there are women who have the ability to ejaculate. And not everybody can ejaculate, can do this, but some women with the metagene can, honey, you're making too much noise with your microwave. They can ejaculate and they can open up the Stargate and they can travel like those Nagashita's did in the Emerald Tablets. He was able to go throughout the cosmos. He learned that from the beings in the halls of Venti. Go ahead.
Janet, I have found that every female, if she's treated properly, and sustained properly is capable of having ejaculate.
They're capable, but will they go down the road it takes to do it, which is to get rid of their wounds? A lot of people are attracted to walking through life in their wound rather than healing themselves to the level that they're able to open their own Stargate.
Right. You have to suspend your illusion of separateness in order to allow that to happen.
Right.
But so Dr. Lessin, wouldn't you say it's the issue that I teach in my book series is that the male has to surrender to the female that she can trust him to follow her instruction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got a working relationship where whatever she says goes. And women can abuse that if they have a darker side or a wounded side and start punishing the man for something that happened to them. But if she begins to accept the trust that he's going to be there and follow her instruction, now you've got this working relationship. Because at some point, I've read where the fifth dimension now is saying it's a loving dimension, that the females can get to the fifth dimension during sacred sex, but they don't want the males coming until they alter their horrific behavior. And it is pretty much horrific behavior.
And it's kind of amazing because it is so easy for anyone that has mastered their body to not to ejaculate. It's just a matter of being able to master your own body.
Wait a minute! I mentioned this in the restaurant tonight before I come on the show, and the men just kind of left the restaurant. They didn't even want to hear this part. We don't ejaculate.
Well,
I cleared the joint.
It's not only that it's perfect for the sex with a female, but it's a wonderful health practice to be able to send the energy up through the spine, and it feels great, and you don't have to ejaculate, and you have all the pleasure anyhow.
Well, now I have to be graphic here because I owe you guys a lot over these topics. Now, last week, my partner, we were having intercourse, and then some manual after I pulled out, and no ejaculation. And where I went at 63 years old after that happened was astounding. I still can't describe it. It took 2 days to get overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
Completely relaxed. I'm a naturally tense, energized person. I'm an Olympian, so I'm a coiled spring. And my research is that way. As a builder, I was that way of houses. That's the way I'm wired. Now, I was a completely opposite thing, following what Dr. Lessin just said. Let the female do her thing. Never mind the whole video of the pounding, pussy pounding sex. Never mind all that. Just go where her intuition goes. I was flat out for 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And no idea still to this day, a week later, where the hell I went. Now that's stage one. That's only stage one, right?
Right. Well, she's helping you to activate and balance your own inner masculine and feminine. Because if you're too identified with masculine, you're not going to go there. You have to balance your internal masculine and feminine to match the external. And then you can travel through the cosmos. But there has to be a willingness to go there. Otherwise, you're stuck in, the 3D reality of the idea of sex. And so
what I call video. It's video land. It's sexual video land.
Yeah. But
Very
sex is designed to take you traveling. And that's what Negashita discovered. And now they didn't go into any description of the how he did it. I have to reread it. It's in the Emerald Towers, but he was definitely able to go out of form and travel the cosmos. But he learned that in the halls of Amenti. Anyway, so.
But is Nigashita still here on the planet? Does he still have interaction with the planet?
Oh yeah, he's here.
Yeah,
he's definitely here.
He came back, I guess. Yeah, they're all here now. It came back. Well, that's right, because we're going to talk about what is 2012. So supposedly they returned in 2012, but you discovered something recently in your journey that this year's 2012.
In my journey, I went to Jerusalem, I went to Ethiopia, and then into South Africa. And in all three locations, and this is what I'm trying to tell people in the audience, we kind of went there. My girlfriend's sister lives in Tel Aviv, so we went there for that. And then we were invited to this group in Africa. And on the way, it's a long trip, so we just managed to say, we'll just go to Addis Ababa, because Ethiopia is the homeland of human beings. They were first cloned there, artificial insemination there. That's now proven by DNA. And maybe we'll learn something. So we were on the way back from South Africa into Ethiopia. We stopped for just an overnight, and we had 4 hours in the morning. So we zoomed over the National Museum. And this is what happens when you're on the scene out looking. And the guy saw me, and he had a big Egyptian ankh on his multicolored costume he was wearing. And the ankh is not big in Ethiopia because the Christian cross has overtaken the whole country. It's overtaken to the point that now Ethiopians have to carry a biometric card that no longer can say what part of Ethiopia they came from. So all the tribal lessons from the clan mothers have been destroyed. That's the power of the cross in Ethiopia. So this guy's got this Egyptian big, huge gold ankh chain on his chest, chaining on his neck. And that's as we talked about the ankh in Isis and Sumer. You can see what I was talking about. So he teaches me that in Ethiopia, this is October, it's only 2011. And I said, you backward people, you're behind by 7 years. And he says to me, we Ethiopians pride ourselves in keeping time very carefully. It's the Gregorian calendar of the Pope, Gregory, of the 6th century, that has changed the year from 2011 then to 2018. And so I quickly realized that, holy crap, everyone's pointing to 2019 being a huge shifting year. Well, it's not. It's really 2012, and 12/21 is, about 10 months from now. We're just coming into the chute of massive change.
So was that intentional?
No, I think that
changed the Gregorian calendar intentionally so that we wouldn't know where we were.
Did not know where we were. There was A.R. Borden, I'm sure you talked about him, and he seems to have slingshot the planet through some kind of a trauma period. I think you told me 2014, 12. They're playing with the whole thing to keep the female off balance. Now, if you follow the fact that the moon could be an artificial construct, an artificial globe,
it is.
Jim Mars talked about this before he passed, and if that's what it is, the moon is a control mechanism of the female uterus. It's governing her period, and somewhere I was reading, and I have to think back where this was, the correct period for a female is 30 days. It's 12 months of 30 days, 360, a perfect circle. But now we're put on a 28-day circle by the moon. And so that's what this is what the moon is doing, changing the female from a 30-day cycle to a 28-day cycle. And that cycle governs her children that are born from her womb. And now the whole thing is just like this whole... As we come closer to understanding this, all these truths now are pouring out. That it's only 2012. The Mayans were correct. I'm not sure if it's Ningishita or Enki who taught the Mayans as Quetzalcoatl. And the Hopi of southwestern United States, where there were pyramids are there. There was all a lush, fertile valley back in the day, the southwestern United States. And so all that was there. and that's all been destroyed. But now it's coming back. The knowledge is all coming back.
So how?
So the mind have that calendar. The mind have that calendar, and it's now inside the Great Giza pyramid. They've got the ascending corridor is lined up exactly with this being the end times.
Mm-hmm.
Is it important if this is 2019 or 2012? Well, you have to head to numerology. I'm not the numerologist, but you've got to go into that analysis in a computer world of ones and zeros. If Elon Musk is correct, and we're on some kind of computerized video board, then these numbers mean something.
So what's supposed to happen?
Well, it's up to the female. It's up to the female to create the future.
Oh, with that in mind, we're pausing for a commercial break.
Already?
It went down.
Okay.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you. Why am I here? You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here. You haven't answered my question. The Matrix is older than you know. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation. Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lessin.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically atomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Collision Course is back. Schedule will be on Revolution Radio every Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m. You get outer space. You get honest answers, real researchers, truthful answers, and a place to engage with questions. Take part in the discussion. Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com hosts Collision Course every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
How healthy are your arteries? Deteriorating circulation has a number of early warning signs. High cholesterol, high blood pressure, fingers and or toes often go cold, arms and or legs often go to sleep, sharp diagonal crease in the earlobe, short walks cause cramping or pains in legs. Memory is not as good as it used to be. Ankles swell late in the day. Chest pain after physical exercise or emotional stress. If you experience even one of these symptoms, your circulatory system is crying out for attention. Extendivite is a natural solution to help improve your overall health. Extendivite is not your average heart tonic. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or find us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha, and welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos on Revolution Radio, and I'm your host, Janet Kerr Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha, Alec Lessin, our producer, Thomas Becker, and our guest is Glenn Bogue, and we're going to get back to our exciting show in just a moment here. We want to remind you to please go over to that donation button on revolution.radio, make your donation this week, because we really need it to keep these shows coming to you live and on air. And a Mad Painter, where are we in our fundraising and any more specials?
We have got 1519. We need 2550. That's 1,031 to go, and we have the whole month of March for a $160 donation in the continental U.S. You get a 5-ounce silver bar, and put your address in the comments, or we won't know where to send it.
Right. Okay. Before we left. Glenn, there was something you were saying, and we were going to pick it up with Sasha. What do you want to say before we bring Glenn back? And Glenn, maybe you know where you left off. Sasha, come on and say something.
Besides, when I talked to Glenn during the break, I'd like him to share how he was chosen for his role as educator in a miraculous way. And that's one thing. And then the other thing is the work that he has done with Aboriginal people in Canada can be an inspiration. We've just got to get off of our false, this terrible exploitative government, silly system that we have, and listen to the old grandmothers, the Indians, the people that really are in touch. Anyway, that's what I'm interested in.
Okay, Glenn, you were in mid-sentence when we cut you off, and it was...
Well, I'll pick up the lead from Dr. Lessin and say what we were talking about in the first hour was the fact that King Solomon, whoever he was, brought in this image of the woman of the tree, who was the woman of the DNA. She fashioned the tree, she used the tree of life to change the ape into a human being in a petri dish in Ethiopia around 200,000 BC, and that is now a fact. I'm a lawyer, so it's a fact by DNA. They've now proven it in Washington, D.C. The National Geographic has proven it all over the world from saliva tests that all women go back to one woman in Ethiopia. So the ancient histories are now proven. And so when Solomon brought this into Egypt, into Israel, he was kicked out. He went to Greece. He brought it back into to Jerusalem again. Mary the Magdalene brought it back in. She was, of course, called the whore and chased out again. And so then the image then came over into North and South America. And this image of the tree people has been taught to me by indigenous elders here in North America. But for me, just quite by accident, I guess, in Holy Saturday, Easter Saturday of 97, smoke or something came to the tree on our front lawn in Toronto, and when the smoke cleared, the energy had formed the image of a 6-foot woman holding 3 scrolls, and we photographed it. It's on the back of all my books. Well, I found out 2 or 3 months later, it's an exact replica of the woman who appeared at Fatima, Portugal. Now, when we watch the history of Fatima, and I have a master's degree, it's my specialty is modern European history, whoever appeared at Fatima, Barbara Marciniak, the channel from the Pleiades, she has said in her CD series I heard, she had said that whoever this woman is, she has predicted the course of modern European history in a free will society. How can this happen? Well, the answer is there's been a plan afoot since 1215 of Magna Carta, with all the banking wars going on, and all you're seeing is banking wars, and we're the fodder of it. But now we come into the 1900s, and it's now going to go on the world scale. It's no longer in the backyards of Waterloo. It's now in the world scale, this fight over this banking cartel. And what she says at Fatima, after you'll have 2 world wars, my pope will come, and that pope was John Paul II, and he will consecrate the world to me, the woman who appeared at Fatima. Well, John Paul II didn't do that. He mistakenly consecrated the world to the Roman female Virgin Mary, as opposed to the original creatrix of mankind, Ninmah. And that was a huge mistake. And then the world went into another spin of communism. She warned, if you don't consecrate the world to me, communism will go underground. Now what we see in communist China and Russia, and this is a video I just watched last week, the president of China, he now needs one more item from Putin, which is the Russians are really a Mongolian Tartar race of people. They hold a certain scepter or something that they end up giving the emperor of Asia. And Xi, all he needs is that one last thing from Putin, and he becomes the emperor who has a global domination system in this currency that they're designing right now. It's partly gold, it's partly the U.S. dollars. It's a basket of different currencies, and this fight's going to go all over the world. So when you come back to North America, and what Dr. Lessin is asking me to talk about are the indigenous clan mothers, it was on CBC Radio in Ottawa last week, as a couple of days ago. It was a Juno Award-winning singer was talking about the people of the trees. And when the indigenous people talk to the trees, they are people. They're not living, breathing stalk of corn, but actual people.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're into magic. You're into indigenous magic. And all the young people all over the world listening to this show, just go into the woods, and it's all there, and it's coming back big time. As Mother Earth begins to throw off the petroleum pollution, plastics, everything going on. They just found that whale. Did you see that? There was 80 pounds of plastic in the whale's stomach.
Oh, wow.
It washed up dead. It was 2 days ago in BBC. So
I think you're so right on in terms of the archaeology of the area. After the the nuking of Sodom and Gomorrah and the nuclear cloud that wiped out Sumer, Nimah went to Anatolia and so forth. And the whole of the Eurasian area that Nimah, the great goddess, was recognized in, had peace. There was no walled cities. There were no slaves. There were no captives. There were no armaments. And it's only when the patriarchy under Marduk and his allies start overthrowing. Basically, it's the difference between Minoan civilization is overthrown by Mycenaean. What does that mean? That means that Nimah's peaceful, cooperative civilization was overthrown by this divide and conquer thing, which is the style of Satan or Marduk.
But watch what you say with Crete. That was the home of Nefertiti, and Nefertiti was the wife of Moses. And Nefertiti warned Moses, "Don't go into those mountains. Don't start bringing those warring waves from the mountains, the great mountain god Enlil, down into Jerusalem." Well, did he listen to his wife?
No.
Off he went. And Moses ended up being killed in the mountains, right? He never came down from the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
He died because he tapped the rock of Meribah twice instead of once. He was killed there. Aaron, his high priest, was killed there. Aaron's 2 sons were killed in the mountains of Jerusalem. You know, this is up now. This is more over in Iraq where they were. There's no mountains in Jerusalem, of course, but they're up in the mountains of Mount Sinai. And so they never got back out of that mess. And when they came back, when Joshua came down into Jerusalem, this is a group of people being coerced to murder.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Yahweh lined up 150,000 soldiers and torched them. When the Jews wouldn't fight, there were a 1,000,000-man army. When they wouldn't fight for Yahweh, he torched 150,000 people, soldiers.
Yeah.
Now are you going to fight? That's the horror of what you just touched on, Dr. Lessin, that the female saying, "Stop the fighting."
That's
and
right.
Yet the men are running off into this, I don't know where the hell they're going, but they're going. And what's making them go, I don't know. Other than greed.
Yeah, that's it. That's what's motivating. They lack oxytocin that allows them to empathize with other people the way women can.
And so when Abraham was taken out of Iraq, where his father was worshiping the Anunnaki godhead, Taraz's his father worshipped Nanarsin. Yeah. It's right there in the Bible. Just read the thing. And so then he's lured out of Iraq by land and heritage. And so what was Moses offered? Land and heritage in the land of milk and honey. Mm-hmm. What was Jesus or Jesus, whoever he was, offered in the desert? He was offered land and heritage. Well, the women don't need that. They've already got the heritage. They're birthing all over the place. It's not interesting to them. So that's the difference between the male who's been duped and the female. What you're just describing, this whole Ninmah thing that went out toward Mongolia of peace. So what's happening now is that when we go back to Francis Bacon in North America, don't forget coming off of Atlantis, that was another disaster, a nuclear disaster that went on there that sunk the place. Mm-hmm. And then the Atlanteans went into Egypt and they went into Mexico and went into North America to become the tall red people. And those lessons were taught in North America. So Francis Bacon said that the new Atlantis is America. It's a very interesting term. Does that mean we're going to repeat nuclear holocaust from Atlantis that occurred, as Dr. Lessin said, in Sodom and Gomorrah? We're now going to repeat it? Well, Karen Huda has said that the generals of the Washington, the lower generals, stopped a bomb being blown up over South Carolina. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 4 years ago. You know, I like Karen Huda.
They stopped these nukes, and they stopped one coming over Hawaii last year.
It's going all over. I just know I can cite these certain things that somebody I respect. Karen Huda is the World Bank lawyer from Yale. Maybe she's lying. I don't think so. But these things are happening. But it's the men are doing this.
So she says Homo capensis is rolling through the Vatican, and they're the ones with the enlarged heads that we have in the museums in South America, the Homo capensis.
Yes, it was on a video I watched the other night. That on the elongated skull, there's no two halves, a right half and left half of the skull. Mm-hmm. They're completely solid. Have you seen that?
No, I didn't know that. So are they a different species?
Yes, because there was DNA tests done on one of them, and they're from off the planet. They think Nefertiti, because she had that long, tall a helmet. It's called a helmet.
Right.
Mitre.
A headdress. The mitre, which the Pope is mirroring, of course. But these Owanis, these fish gods, had this elongated skull, and they would cover it with the mitre. And now they did DNA testing on them, and they're not from this planet.
So what's the answer? We started out talking about the United States and the banking.
Well, let's go now into
created by the Anunnaki, and it goes way back to Nanar. But go ahead. Let's.
The banking took a left-hand turn. It was always. Well, I'm getting a lot of things. When Eve stood up to Yahweh in the Garden of Eden, it's a genetics lab, and she met Hanakash. Hanakash, now that term, which has long been thought to be serpent, has now been reinterpreted as the shining being. Mm-hmm. And Eve decided to go with the shining being who was giving her knowledge.
Right.
And with that, I understand that Yahweh brought the banking system from Orion, which matches Robert Stanley's work, that the Enki came from Orion. You can come from Orion. It's a financial control system, and they bring that onto Eve to put her into a debt cage.
So you're saying Enki brought the banking, but I thought it came from
Yahweh. No, I say Robert Stanley said that Enki's family comes from Orion. They came through Sirius star system, but they originally are Orions. That's where the big war is going on. And then they came here looking for gold because they hit us. So that planet hit us, and now they needed gold to save that planet.
Is he saying that Anu is not Enki's father?
Yeah.
He's saying that Anu was not Enki's father.
Yeah, no, he's saying yes, he is his father.
Yeah, so
for some reason he's saying they originate from Orion.
So how does he know that? Or where's that come from?
I don't know. I don't know the man.
So we got to watch that we're quoting people that are quoting their own whatever. We don't know where they're getting this information from.
Well, that's a good point. Okay. But all I'm saying is this banking system, I was told from a different source, came from Orion. The point is the banking system comes here as a method of control. And when we look at a banking system that's in North America right now, it's all over the world, of course, but I'm worried about North America. That's where the real fight's coming. The power center of the world right now is in downtown Washington, and so it's moving to Beijing. But that's a very small economy compared to the United States. And so that the new the Atlantis fight is going to occur on U.S. soil. And so the indigenous people it's a really civil war between the European crown model that's still very present in the U.S. and the indigenous clan mothers who are now rising up again. They've come out of the woods. They're coming out of the woods. They just need a leader, a North America-wide leader, and they will lead the young people, both indigenous and non-indigenous. And when you ask me, are you indigenous? And I say, well, where are you born? Cleveland. And I said, well, you're indigenous. Well, no, I'm born in Cleveland. Well, you're indigenous to North America.
Right.
Well, what are you talking about? Well, my mother's not native. Where'd she come from? Well, she came from Cincinnati. Well, she's indigenous to the land. You've just been completely fooled by Harvard University, by the Ivy Leagues teaching a certain curriculum over generations. It doesn't take long.
Right.
So when young kids know that they have this magic of being born in the land, if you come from Iraq as an immigrant, you could maybe learn it. You could bring us the lessons from Iraq or Iran, which are very ancient cultures, and bring it into Cincinnati and teach it to your 14-year-old friends. You know, you can teach it all. That's what should be happening. But the person born in Cincinnati or Cleveland, they're native to this land, and they have this talent. And if they just tap into it, look up what happens.
So you're saying that people who are born where they're born, they have connection to the land.
Absolutely.
And they get disconnected through technology,
education or being moved. That new migration law of the UN, now they're moving them all over the place. They're pouring into Germany and they're pouring into London, and people don't know where the hell they are. And then they took orphans from London, they put them in Australia. And the woman at 80 years old, she said, I just want to go home to London. After 80 years in Australia, I just want to go home. She knows where she is.
What is that? They do your chart and they tell you where you were born. And there's two other places that you can resonate with. It's some kind of triangulation. So I was born in Pennsylvania, but when I came to Hawaii, I felt at home here too. And it's something to do with not only where you're born, but your soul or something like that.
But now you're going past life. Now you have to go to past life chart and start doing that whole work.
Right. But anyway, so
now the war is against the indigenous people. The financial war in the U.S. is against the indigenous people.
Well, the indigenous people, anybody's born here. So the war against...
Well, that's the bigger pool. That's the bigger pool, the more ancient pool that has the ancient lessons, because the person born in Cincinnati has no exposure to the clan mother. All they're getting is coming through their phone, their cell phones, what they're being taught. Now, take that person born in Cincinnati and put them into a sweat lodge or to a big house and look at what happens.
What if they just go back to nature? If they go out and put their feet in the ground and start learning from...
That will start the process. That will start the reawakening. But to be with your coach or teacher, you go much faster and more certain.
Yeah, you know, my friends among the Zuni say that as children, they memorize the song cycle and dance cycle. And Clifford Mahudi, my friend, didn't even know what it meant until he was a mature, reflective adult. And suddenly he realized these things that he was singing was the history of humanity and the wisdom of humanity. And so that's what I'd say. Not just go out in the woods, but make friends with some Indian women and ask them to help you learn.
They're so tied to the magnetic field. We went to South Africa and we put tobacco, sacred tobacco. Now, I'm not too good at sacred tobacco. My girlfriend is. We put it into the water And the people who were the 6 of us that came from all over the world, they were so stunned by the energy. I'm just like taking notes here, right? The Cree grandmother up near the Arctic Circle calls the other grandmother in Ottawa, Canada, like maybe 8 hours away, and says, "What's Kim doing in South Africa? What's she putting in the river? I can feel it." She can feel the tobacco going into the river in South Africa from northern Canada?
Yep.
What? Now that phone call either took place or didn't take place. But if it did, imagine the power of the young people who are completely disillusioned. They're bored out of their minds. And there's something in the sacred tobacco. There's some magic substance that happens there that opens the door to real magic of the human beings, not the AI cyborg. Let's call them the cyborgs. And the kids are heading right for cyborg now. You're being desensitized. Every movie I watch is always bombs and guns and killing and blowing shit up. And
right. So don't watch it. Yeah. Turn it off.
well, no, but that's cyborg. That's cyborg. Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Whoa. Bleh. So that's one way to go.
I think they'll get over it eventually. I know. Everybody wants to be afraid of it, but it's like it's a cycle. There was this thing that I'm watching about the time travelers, and the time traveler says, "Oh, like in 2100 or something, everybody just gives into AI, and they give it to AI, and then AI operates the Earth for a couple hundred years, and then nothing happens because it stifles creativity." And they go, "We're stagnating," and this is until they decided to take it back from AI. But AI is the sum total of all the human experience, so they're able to calculate the win for all. Humans can't calculate the win for all. They always have somebody suffering at the hands of somebody else. It's always hierarchical. So the AI came into being because they couldn't calculate how to make it fair across the board, a win for all. Not like even Star Trek has it. The few for the many, right? It's like, no, there's a win for all. And how do we calculate it? What human mind can calculate that win for all? But there is one. There's a win for all where everybody on this planet comes out equal and they win and nobody loses. So that's a story, but it was an interesting story. Even, stories, are they real or are they fake? I don't know, but it got access and it got told. And it goes into the human psyche. So there's something going on that we're creating AI because it's something missing in life, and that's why it's coming about in the first place. I don't know. Everybody wants to think it's something outside of us, the reptilians or the archons or something, and that's what Nagashita Thoth said when he sunk it. He said he sunk Atlantis because the archons were coming through the interdimensional portal and they were taking over the human beings, right? The council members, so the Anunnaki council members, and so he blocked them from coming through, so he sunk Atlantis, or Atlantis got sunk over in that war or something. But that's when it goes to David Icke, and David Icke says Thoth warned. He said, "Well, even though we won this battle, they're going to come back and they're going to be taking over the heads of all the leaders of the world." So David Icke says, "Yeah, they're back and they've taken over the queen or whatever." And so it gets confusing. Are the royals actually reptilian? You're saying they are, part fish, and this is just all genetic variation on the theme. So they're humanoid, but they have different features. So what's going on here? Let's see if we can.
Well, it goes back to a contract. They've made a contract to retain power.
Now, who's they?
And the royals of Europe.
And
the royal crowns of Europe.
With?
They made a contract with Yahweh and Enlil.
Enlil, okay.
Enlil, yeah. We were discussing it when we were in South Africa. The channel where it was called Adamu from Lyra, and Adamu was saying just what you said. The archons were coming through. Beings were sneaking through onto the planet, which were not very pleasant people, causing a lot of trouble. So the Lyrans put a quarantine shield around the Earth. That might be Van Allen's belt, another ceiling above the Earth. I don't know, but it's hard for them to get through now, in order to correct this problem here on the Earth. But then he said the red vampire, whoever this red vampire is, you can look him up on the internet, Damu, died all of a sudden. The head honcho of the pyramid of power died. I don't know if he was killed or if he just expired. But suddenly...
General Titer of the Air Force said he shot him down and killed him.
So now the scramble is on for nobody has the marching orders. This whole group of bankers, let's call them the bankers, who are funding all the military, funding all the corporations, everything's in disarray now. They haven't got any marching orders. I mean, Exxon's built on the principle that people are called to Jekyll Island in Georgia, off of Georgia coast is Jekyll Island, where the Federal Reserve Bank started. The executives of Exxon are called there every year and given their marching orders. And it's a simple life. You just go home and you execute the order. Well, if there's no orders coming, now they're in chaos. So now it's a free-for-all that's going on. And the killing of children and it's called I guess pedivore now is coming out more and more. These sacrifices they're making is because they made a contract with these archons or these energy beings that feed on the fear factor of the beings that are here. So that's one group of people. And the rest of the people are kind of like watching this going, what is going on? They're just living in Cincinnati trying to be normal. But you can't be normal anymore now. You know it. You just go on the internet. You can see the videos and reports going on all over the world. Not just the Vatican, by the way, but the Vatican's one of the main corporations that's doing this work. So
you're saying that these they're not getting their marching orders, and so they were getting marching orders from. Was it an Anunnaki or was it somebody higher? Who is this?
This red vampire? No, the Anunnaki. Well, I'm not sure who the red vampire is, and maybe Sasha can help us here. But whoever this person was, I always suspected they were living in Germany, and a lot of crap went down between the Swiss and German border. I mean, a lot of murder and mayhem. Either with sacrificing going to gain power.
The red vampire, because on the new Star Trek, they're saying the Red Angel. There's like a red angel that is doing something on the. You're too close. What is angel?
Well, red was always the Anunnaki from Sirius star system.
Right.
From Nibiru. If you have all the prophets of the Bible were red, they all had this element from Sirius star system, or right from Nibiru. So if people don't know what we're talking about, Nibiru, and I just heard it again last week, but it's in my book 4, that NASA knew in 85. They know Nibiru's there. I mean, without a doubt, there's a big planet coming toward our solar system. Now, where it is, they're not too sure exactly in the trajectory. So that's now a fact.
Right.
So the Anunnaki exist. They are here, and this planet's coming toward us. That's their home. Every 3,500 years it comes through here. So this event's coming at us. Now, what's going to happen this time? The light beings are here that have gotten through. The light beings are allowed to come through this quarantine thing we're talking about. And so they're all here. And whatever's coming, this wave of energy, a wave of awakening, is coming toward us, apparently. When it's going to get here, we don't know. I'm suggesting December of this year coming up as being December 2012.
Really,
and the whole world now is starting. I mean, you can almost not escape it anymore.
But when
if you have a cell phone.
When it reaches, we're supposed to have a simultaneous DMT awakening everybody alive at the same time. And they're just going to get it. They're going to realize this is the Matrix, this is the game. The game will be over. And then we'll be out of it and free, and then you can choose where you want to go in the continuum.
Yeah, some people are writing that when Nibiru hit the Earth and knocked us inside of Mars, and that's pretty much a fact of the solar system, that there's a fifth planet outside of Mars. There has to be what's called Bode's Law, Bodes. There has to be a planet between Mars and Jupiter. There's only the asteroid belt, which is part of your Pacific Ocean where you guys are. It's the crust. And we were knocked inside of Mars in the third position, where there can't be a planet. They can't explain what Earth's doing here. And it's no longer straight up and down. It's rolled over at 23.5 degrees. Well, if it ever straightened up to true north and south, all the crap would stop. All the earthquakes would stop. Everything would go back into a homeostasis. It would stop being an egg and it would go back to being a globe. The lion and the lamb would lie down together. People would live on sunshine. The lion wouldn't be killing the elk anymore. You wouldn't have that whole thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite an interesting proposition. A planet of peace.
Right.
Where the Earth used to be a Garden of Eden. I'm told that the people from Jupiter came here for vacation. It was fantastic. You could be a dolphin one minute and then fly and be a bird, and then you're going off a waterfall, and you'd go home on Saturday.
So part of the problem is apparently people got bored with such peace until they had to create turmoil. And that's
I think that when Nibiru's moon hit the Tiamat and knocked us inside of Mars, that's when we had trouble. That wasn't too long ago.
What made that happen? See,
because Nibiru comes through the opposite direction. It was captured by Neptune and Uranus. The outer planets captured to bring it into our solar system. It goes the opposite direction, so you're bound to have, at some point, a collision.
In the literature that I've been studying, it's Sirius C went nova, and it propelled Nibiru, and Nibiru, moon of Nibiru struck what's now the Pacific Basin, knocked Tiamat, as Earth was called, into its current position. But the Fibonacci sequence of planets places another planet not where the close asteroid belt is, but between Jupiter and Mars, where the Kuiper belt, which is fragments of a big planet called Maldek that used to be there, that had humans on it. They took shelter as they saw this thing, a Draco satellite coming at them, the satellite that ultimately became Venus, and they took shelter in Mars. Underneath, the Martians didn't particularly like them. These are other humanoids Mars used to be really nice. Finally, the Federation placed them down on the Gobi, and they joined the wars against the Dracos. That's the history I've got of that sequence of why the planets are like they are, and why the Nibiru is coming clockwise, where all the other planets go anti-clockwise around Solaris.
Yes. I mean, wow. So, but the whole time we've been here, which is not too long, it's been this planet of turmoil. We're a cracked egg. There's volcanoes and there's earthquakes and mudslides. It's a cracked egg, and it's trying to heal itself. And the consciousness of the female's human side can heal the planet much faster once the wars and male-dominated greed is eliminated. And that's the lesson that's to be taught to the younger generations coming up.
So
there's no call for it. The only cause of the war is the shortage of money. But if you own the diamonds of America or the petroleum, if you own them, like, don't forget Norway now has a national fund of $200 billion. 5 million people, it's $200,000 each. Because they tapped off of the petroleum, and the Exxon had to pay them, 10% as a national fund. So now those people can travel anywhere they want in the world.
Right.
Put on a bigger scale. Every diamond sold, the people get 10%. a whole different system. In a republic, the American human being living in Cincinnati owns the resources of America. And you can't take it away from them. The 51% cannot take it away. That person has to be paid a dividend and not a tax. And now that person can travel to Turkey or to Maui and visit Sasha and Janet. They can go anywhere they want. And if they screw it up and the investment doesn't work and the ideas they have with Sasha and Janet to create a tantric school, whatever they're doing, they can always go back home to Cincinnati where they own the land under their house. Now you've got real creativity. You have a fertile bed of creativity that's not governed by debt. But U.S. students are graduating now with $100,000 in debt.
Right.
So they haven't got a choice to go anywhere.
We've got like 15 minutes, and so we've identified the problem.
Yeah,
and we're looking at it at the global scale because you're working with indigenous people all the way up to the what do you call that? The court. You're outside of the local court. You're going to the galactic court or the what's it called? No. You have to go. You have to go and demand a constitutional convention. Right. Okay.
Karen Hudez is calling for one in Washington.
Right.
She's contacting the 50 governors, and she's calling for a constitutional convention. It's right there in the U.S. Constitution. They can call for one to create the correct bank of the people, not the central bank of Switzerland.
Yeah. Once you have a constitutional convention, you're no longer. You can even change the basic constitution because you're even free of the limits of how many people and which people can be there. That is like an open opportunity to create something totally new. It's an excellent idea.
Now watch what Alan Brown's do. Watch what Alan Brown, the lawyer in L.A. Alan Brown's the chairwoman of the Public Bank Institute. Now Los Angeles, did you hear this? Los Angeles has a bill to pass a public bank of L.A.
Wow.
Where the people of L.A. own the bank. Washington State has legislation starting a public bank. North Dakota has had a public bank for 100 years. North Dakota has never had a recession. They're not tied to Wall Street. The farmers of North Dakota have their own bank. Now, once you start a public bank,
Glenn, before
where the people own
the
yeah.
Go ahead, finish the thought.
Once the people of a republic, of the United States is a republic, where they own the resources and the King of England can't tax them, you cannot tax wages in a free society. Never mind democracy. Get rid of that term. In a free society, you cannot tax wages. That way, all of Sasha and Janet and the guy in Cincinnati, all of their income remains their own. And they can hire a lawyer if they need one to fight the government, but they have all of their money. So income under the Federal Reserve Act and Income Tax Act in 1913, the income was income from real estate. You can tax that, but you cannot tax wages. So if you're born with the right to own the resources of North America, the way the indigenous grandmothers teach, and your wages can't be taxed, look out. Then corporations pay the government's wages and fees to operate the government, which is very small. And then as a transnational company comes into to North America to mine the gold or mine the oil, they pay the people a contracted amount of 25%.
Wow.
That's fair. But the people always own the land and the resources, and the transnational has a license to come in. But all your documents right now, I'm a lawyer, all the documents of land, the minerals are reserved for the crown.
Right.
And the crown is a term of the Vatican. It's a copyright of the Vatican.
So who is that? Is that Enlilites or Enkiites?
Enlilites.
Oh.
So how did you manage to get freedom, money, and power back to the indigenous people? What is the procedure? What can we do in the United States that's like the magic that you performed in Canada?
The United Nations passed the UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. UNDRIP was passed in 2007 by 184 nations. 4 did not pass it: the USA, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And I heard tonight New Zealand, because big Illuminati families own huge swaths of New Zealand. And so those 4 countries now have had to sign on to the United Nations Declaration, where the indigenous laws are required. And all that you have to do is to start an indigenous court wherever you live. And Kevin Annett, the Canadian priest who is stopping the Vatican from murdering children in Brussels, they have an international court. And they have convicted the Queen of England, Pope Benedict. They've now convicted Pope Francis, and many other high priests. They are convicting of pedophilia. And all it took was a tribunal of the people. They have 30 jurors there, and they start convicting, and then start enforcing their convictions. So we've started in Canada. We've got 3 hearings now. It's small, but it's starting. And we're quoting the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. Also, there is the World Knights Templar Court in the Netherlands. And before we go, I just found out there is a stone in Rhode Island with Knights Templar markings on it. The Knights Templar claimed North America in the year 1200. When Columbus showed up, it was already claimed by the Knights Templar. And they had an open trading agreement with the indigenous people of peace.
Yeah.
Right.
Of peace and respect. We have to restore that ancient Knights Templar trading deal with the people, where everyone was treated fairly. And European crowns wiped out the Knights Templar and then sent Columbus and Pizarro and Cortez and murderers,
right,
to take over the mineral rights of North America and South America,
so that's
and Hawaii.
Still going on.
Well, it's rolling back the other way now, huge. It's called UNDRIP, UNDRIP. Look it up, and start your own indigenous tribunal where you are.
Because we're all indigenous if we're born here. But what about...
No one gets that, Janet. Nobody. I tell them, and and you get it right away.
Well, see, that's, I'm taking it to the interplanetary level, too, because, who owns all this stuff, right? So what if somebody goes somewhere and sticks down a flag and says it's theirs? There are people that have already been there, right? So who owns it? Who owns anything, right?
Whatever we're going to do, but whatever we're going to do right now in 2012 has never been done before. So we talk about Norway, we talk about conventions. It's never been done before. It's so creative when you think about it. It has never been done. But is it AI and humans? Is it all people from Lyra and Orion and Pleiades? Are they all coming together? Who knows? It has never been done. This family of entities, it has never been done before. Right. And many people are waking up to the fact the 8 of us that were in South Africa were told when we were there, we realized we were all 8 of us were in Lyra millions of years ago, and we agreed that we would come to that campsite in South Africa. And we all just went, poof, and went to bed. What a realize. We all just nodded and said, oh my God, let's go. And is it true? It doesn't have to be true. Let's live in Neverland. Let's live in creative Neverland. It'll become true.
Well, we're all making this up anyway, so don't we want to make it up?
That's what I'm saying. So once you're all making it up, let's go. But you've got to get rid of the debt. You've got to get this banking computer
the debt.
It's
artificial. We can just blink it away. It's all
it comes from
to be forgiven.
Once you have a public, Ellen Brown is saying, when the public bank is current in LA, they'll start cutting checks to everybody. Start giving Janet and Sasha $100,000, giving them $1 million. You know what they're going to do? They're going to spend the stuff. And the economy would explode. It would explode. But when you give that money to commercial banks, they hoard the money.
Well, that's the whole problem, is hoarding.
That's right.
If there was a limit on personal wealth or any one entity holding all this funding and it just went back into circulation, our job as people that receive the money is to consume, to keep it in circulation. So that's why the basic minimum needs economy will work. If you start giving everybody money, they're just going to spend it anyway. It's going to boost everything.
The money has to go back to the people to spend. And you would, Janet would do the right thing. She would spend $1 million, $10 million in 20 minutes. And it would go to the Philippines, it would go to South Africa, it would go to Iceland. And if it didn't work, give her some more. The economy would go crazy.
Yeah.
Just one woman, Sasha, with a big credit card. Just one woman going crazy. Compare that to the crap you went through in New Mexico. Compare that to that crap you went through.
Yeah.
Just give her more. You didn't have that problem. She's walking with a black card or a purple card with a limited spending ability, and you'd get the right people there, and we would have a great time.
Yes.
And it's mind-blowing concept to give the public bank money to the people and not to the private commercial banks. In Canada, it's required to give the money to the private banks. It's required under the law. I have the document right here in my office from Parliament. That's got to be changed. That money has to go to the public bank and the people and start cutting checks.
Mm-hmm.
And who cares if you fail? What if you buy a whole bunch of cement and it sinks to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean? At least you employed the cement makers, and they went to the store and they bought computers for their kids. Who cares where it goes as long as it goes to the people and not to the royal families of Europe? That's as simple as that.
Where did that start? Where people were allowed to hoard all that shit? You know,
when kingship was lowered down from Nibiru.
And so that happened under Enki. So he screwed up. If you read, what was his name? The guy that died at the same time as Sitchin. Gardner. He says that his intention was to do something really nice and establish the priesthood and the kingship to help humanity. You know.
Well, I go back to the Garden of Eden. Wait a minute, Garden of Eden, Enlil appeared as the Lord God, and Eve decided to go with Enki, the shining one. Hanakash was Enki who had the knowledge, and Eve went with Enki to learn and be taught at a maximum level. And at that point, she was put in debt prison. And they brought the banking right then.
How did they put Eve in debt prison?
They brought the monetary system from Orion, the debt-based system. And ever since then, we've been.
Did Eve have to pay back at 25% interest? I mean, what happened?
No, that's what happened. The creating debt. Every time she spends money, the money goes back to the bank at interest. So there's never enough money. In an interest-based system, there's never enough money. If I lend you $100, over 1 year at 10% interest, in a year you owe me $110. Well, you don't have that $10 extra. Don't worry, I'll lend you the extra 10. Then the next year you owe me $220. Don't worry, I'll lend you $250. Now it's just ballooning. The debt just balloons. To the point that no one can afford the debt. Right now, no one can afford the debt anymore. The debt right now is $3 trillion. It's $3 trillion, the debt on the banks.
Right.
They can't lend anymore. There's no...
Glenn, we have one more minute. We're out of time. Tell us...
Sell your book.
We'll have to have you back for sure. But tell us how to reach you or...
how to get your books. I want people to buy your books.
My books are at authorhouse.com. The Books of Isis.
Like Glenn.
There's 4 of them. Book 5 isn't quite out yet. It's finished, but there's a discussion about some photographs in it. But yeah, Glenn Bogue, Bogue, The Books of Isis, at authorhouse.com or Amazon. But I make twice as much if you buy them from Author House. So it's not the point. It's not the point. The point is to get the books and start reading. They have the best scholars in the world are summarized in those books, and it's a great foundational product underneath you to then start forward and to encourage people to start going. Just walk forward, and you'll be led. You'll be led.
All right, that's the end of a great show. We have an echo. Aloha, everybody. Love and blessings.
Thank you.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.